What is art? And its a hierarchical value? An exploration featuring the work of Ruscha. Art. What is it? Well, according to the Britannica, art is something that is created with imagination and skill, and that is beautiful, or that expresses important ideas or feelings. So, according to that metric, is this art? To me, yes. On the basis that it has been created. I feel that anything that has been created is art. To someone else, however, they can disagree. So, who is right? Who sets the standards and who sets the definitions? I had a conversation once in which someone argued that art in galleries, such as those with just a white canvas and a small splatter of paint, they argued that that isn't art, it can't be art, and suggested that it was rather nonsense, a low-effort scam, pretending to be art, to be meaningful. My rebuttal was that it was in the museum, it was elevated, it had to have been there for a reason, but in the back of my head, I found my argument had no real foundation, insufficient reasoning. It was a lacking response. They argued that it had no meaning, that it was aesthetically insufficient, showing a major lack of skill and effort. To them, the presence of such art was truly bizarre. In many ways, I agreed. Many times, I hadn't really gauged any meaning from such art. It poses the question, does the fact that such art is in a museum or gallery influence whether people will see such work as art, whether it impacts its value and its perceived meaning? On specifically the idea of the value of art, the metrics I perceive to be relevant are skill, meaning, and beauty. On that metric, could I say that the value of this Thomas Kinkade painting is superior in comparison to the Oof artwork by Ruscha? To me, it is more beautiful. The meaning is more apparent, and I perceive that it is a higher skill level. So, according to that metric, is it better art? I mean, it is documented that the works of Thomas Kinkade is loathed by many art critics. So, on that basis, is it less valuable art? Does the person who likes the art impact its status as art, talk less of it being valuable art? By exploring this topic, I will aim to find out why something is art and the value of art in relation to Ruscha. Next time, I may be able to argue my case more effectively. Ruscha, an American artist born in Omaha, Nebraska, in the year 1937 during the Second World War. He grew up in the state of Oklahoma and then went on to study in the famous city of Los Angeles, enrolled in the Chouinard Art Institute, now known as the California Institute of the Arts. Here, he took courses in lettering, design, and advertising, honing his talent for combining imagery with words. Ruscha's body of work features an interesting fusion of typography, photography, painting, and collage, spanning over the course of 60 years. It is said that he employs tropes familiar to advertising and commercial models with his work, attracting comparisons to the movements of pop art, surrealism, Dadaism, abstract expressionism, and conceptual art. And now, again, looking at his art, knowing his art, is it art? And is it measurable? What is the criteria? Is there an objective truth? Interestingly so, simply learning and researching about the artist behind the work, his diverse portfolio, his education, and the themes and contexts that surround his work increase the value that I see in his work, especially the Oof painting. Before research, I wasn't able to ascertain the methodology of creation, so knowledge increased the sense of skill, effort, and care that I perceived to have gone into his work. In regards to context, following the rebellious pop art movement of the mid-1950s to late 1950s, Ruscha can be said to have been tasked with breaking the existing assumptions of fine art by elevating common themes into the world of art through his work. This is essentially the framework of conceptual art, and art I more simply define as one that ignites the famous trope of quote-unquote down to interpretation. This links to the concept of the post-modern era, which conceptual art and Ruscha can be said to be housed under. Postmodern art emerged in the mid to late 20th century, rejecting the fixed truths and conventions of the preceding modernism. It embraces fragmentation, irony, and parody, often blending diverse elements from different sources and cultures. Postmodern artists, such as Ruscha, questioned these traditional boundaries, challenged established norms, and explored the nature of art itself. This results in a diverse and often playful body of work that invites viewers to reconsider their assumptions about art and culture. Modern art, the predecessor of postmodern art, spanned from the late 19th to mid-20th century and emphasized experimentation, personal expression, the challenging of earlier traditional norms, and the idea of a universal truth. Postmodern art, emerging after, questioned the ideas of absolute truth proposed by modern art, often blending various styles of media while incorporating elements such as cultural commentary, and ironically challenged the same modern art that challenged art movements before it. We can aim to assess the value of art, and in this particular case, Ed Ruscha's work, particularly by looking at the postmodern characteristics, concepts, and frameworks, potentially increasing the value of Ruscha's art through meaning, relevance, and significance. As said before, one of the concepts behind Ed Ruscha's work was his ability to challenge the status quo of traditional art. As a quote-unquote postmodern artist, Ed Ruscha's work fundamentally challenged the modernist ideas of, for example, linear progression proposed by modern art, particularly in its use of language and imagery, instead of adhering to the chronological sequence of artistic styles that confined artists of the modern era. Ruscha's art draws inspiration from multiple sources and influences such as pop art, minimalism, and even everyday life, blurring the boundaries between different periods and movements, which defies easy categorization in terms of his work, especially in comparison to the linear confinement of modern art. In regards to his painting of the word ouf, for example, by presenting it as a standalone work and isolating the word ouf, Ruscha prompts viewers to reevaluate its meaning and significance in the context of the gallery or museum space. Ordinary objects and phrases such as ouf could take on new, varied layers of interpretation, such as a humorous interpretation, and an aesthetic appreciation, a work that can be said to be seen as simple or unintellectual subject matter, traditionally not worthy of the museum space. In regards to humorous interpretation, Ruscha even once said,
and whatever response it can elicit, then great. If a person laughs at one of my paintings, then maybe I've achieved something.
Ruscha's painting demonstrates careful attention to formal elements such as color, spatial arrangement, and typography. The bold, graphic presentation of the word ouf invites viewers to engage with the visual qualities of the work. He also questions the grand narratives of art history by emphasizing the everyday and mundane in his work. Rather than subscribing to a single artistic vision or ideology for what art should be and should look like, Ruscha's work embraces diversity and plurality, reflecting the complexity of contemporary culture. His work, despite the aspect of the everyday and the mundane, now exists in the context of a gallery or museum space, which opens up the artistic vision so that ordinary objects, phrases can take on new layers of interpretation and aesthetic appreciation. What was once the phrase ouf is now something new, something else, once again challenging the boundaries of the art world leaders and the public. He also questions the modern idea of originality and authenticity through his exploration of language and imagery in his work. He challenges these traditional norms by his use of found phrases and commercial signage, which highlights the idea of appropriation and pastiche, which then in turn questions the idea that an artist and his art solely self-sustaining. In regards to the hierarchy of art, Ruscha's many approaches to art blurs the boundary between different art forms and challenges the hierarchy that often idolizes painting and sculpture over other mediums. Through his use of photography, printmaking, and his text-based works, Ruscha expands the possibilities of artistic expression beyond the traditional boundaries in his time. The fact that Ruscha's work was so groundbreaking and rebellious in his time adds historical significance and therefore meaning to Ruscha's work. So, does the fact that he pushed boundaries make the art on the basis that I've now understood the historic and conceptual frameworks behind the work through knowledge and research? Yes, I believe it makes it not only art, but significant, powerful, and valuable art. I will say that it is art on the basis of knowing much more information. But is it art, and is it valuable, generally speaking? Worthy of being in a museum, worthy of being artistically respected? Ruscha is also known for his books of deathpan photographs, such as 26 gasoline stations, which features images of what can be perceived to be mundane, and doll photographs of 26 gas stations in America. I can see this work being viewed as nonsensical, which draws reference to the work of Dada artist Michael Duchamp and his quote-unquote nonsensical fountain, or urinal. To emphasize the link, Ruscha even once said about his work,
"I'm dead serious about being nonsensical,"
which highlights the Dada influence that can be said to be present in his work. Ruscha submitted a urinal to an exhibition which claimed that they would accept any work of art. Duchamp wanted to use his artwork for quote-unquote ready-made urinal to see how open-minded the exhibition really was and if they really believed in the freedom of artistic expression that they came to promote. In its initial rejection, the fountain sparked intense debate and controversy within the art community. Duchamp's fountain, just like many of the work that Ruscha has made, is work that has challenged traditional notions of aesthetic beauty and ownership and value. It forces viewers to reconsider their preconceived notions and ideas about art and its meaning. In my opinion, this fountain is art on the basis of the concepts behind it, and simply because I believe that art is art simply because it has been created. The irony is that the postmodern concepts behind the urinal advocate that there is no objective truth, which further advocates that value is more so in the subjective opinion. It means it would have been logical for the museum to never accept Duchamp's fountain on the basis of a subjective opinion. Ultimately, it is then important to realize that Duchamp challenged the traditional notions of art and it wasn't imposed under the order of perceived objective truth. It is therefore more appropriate to conclude that on the basis of collective truth, however, Duchamp's urinal has great value, especially since it was voted the most influential piece of modern art of the 20th century. It paved the way for the conceptual art movement that followed and challenged and innovated. I believe the postmodern idea of the non-existence of objective truth to be reasonable and astute. I then believe that the value of art can only be assessed subjectively and either agreed upon by individuals or not agreed upon, but never objectively. To emphasize, any opinion on value in this sense is valid. Also, in that sense, whether someone believes it is even art is a valid opinion. However, to even state that it's a truth would be a paradox in itself. So, in that respect, this essay will value if it is art and the value of Ruscha's art and the subjective criteria of skill, aesthetics, meaning, and the added metric of sensory experience. In regards to any semblance of an objective truth, I believe looking at a collective truth is the closest measure to obtaining this sense of value. Having worked in a museum, I believe, does influence the collective truth as to whether an artwork is valuable or not. The fact that a museum, an institution traditionally associated with cultural significance and authority, chooses to exhibit Ruscha's work can validate its importance within the art world and in regard to the public. With this new framework, however, I can now assess and value art and argue for its value, and will in reference to Ruscha's book, 26 Gas Stations. 26 Gas Stations, published by Ruscha in 1963, marked a significant departure from what was considered to be conventional modes of artistic expression. It consists of 26 black and white photographs of gas stations along Route 66. The work challenged traditional notions of subject matter and artistic technique. This new form of art elevated the idea of the mundane to the realm of art and pioneered a new era of conceptual art. As aforementioned, the work may appear mundane and relatively simple. However, beneath the layers lies Ruscha's scrupulous attention to detail through facets such as composition. It invites viewers to reflect on the intersection of commerce and landscape in American society. Through the stark, evocative imagery, Ruscha prompts viewers to reconsider their perceptions of the everyday and to find beauty in the overlooked and the ordinary. In essence, 26 Gas Stations by Ruscha is a testament to his cultural legacy as an artist on the basis of intellectual depth and conceptual strength. These works challenge viewers to reconsider their perceptions of the everyday and the mundane. The idea of elevating the ordinary is a fundamental conceptual strength and gives his work value. Also, the act of conducting deeper research on these works, I will reiterate, increases the value of the art subjectively. The problem that I believe lies with conceptual works, such as Ruscha's, where it is simply quote-unquote down to interpretation, is the fact that value is sometimes contingent on, for example, having knowledge of art history and education. Also, in specific relation to Ruscha's work, I will speculate an upbringing or experience of American culture, or the specific niches he brings up in his work impacts connections, microcosmically speaking, since there are many people internationally who don't resonate with the themes of American culture in his work. A contrary opinion is also valid in suggesting that more niche themes behind artworks will allow for a more valuable, deeper, and tailored experience for those who resonate. But even then, perhaps connecting is not even the real point. Ruscha himself says that.
I don't make art to communicate with people necessarily.
So perhaps his intentions lie solely with a Dadaist approach, which is making art solely for challenging standards. Anything else, such as interpretations, can be said to be a bonus. On the opposing side, I still believe there is more value to this notion of down to interpretation. Viewers can share their interpretations with one another, and they not only get new insights into the art, but also into each other's perspectives. In essence, the beauty of connecting with artwork that is down to interpretation is its ability to inspire inclusivity and emotional exploration, as well as community engagement. To now answer the question posed at the start of this essay about hierarchy and the value of art, especially in relation to Kinkade and Ruscha in particular, I believe now that whether one is better than the other is a complex, multifaceted issue that can only be assessed through a macrocosm by valuing the opinions of respected artwork figures such as gallery owners, curators, and art critics who act as gatekeepers to defining some semblance of a collective truth, and through a microcosm of the valid, subjective, and individual opinion of a person. Objectivity is something I don't believe to be substantiated. As aforementioned, research in Ruscha itself has impacted how I value his work due to understanding the underlying postmodern context surrounding his artwork and the impact historically. However, in reference to the work of Kinkade and the exploration of value hierarchy, I believe Kinkade exceeds in art value only on the metric of being more impactful personally in regards to sensory sensations such as nostalgia, imagery, and the escapism provided by Kinkade's painting. I do believe that art can be assessed generally though, despite my complex, paradoxical, but not all encompassing belief that art cannot be objective due to agreeing with the postmodern school of thought that there is no objective truth. On that basis, Ruscha's art generally, and macrocosmically speaking, I believe, supersedes the value of Kinkade's on the specific merits of the impact on art, culture, and significance in regards to the idea of the collective truth, although the beauty is that it can be debated. So, in essence, the value of art lies in the beauty of the nuanced and very subjective opinions on every piece of art, and more generally so in the flawed, yet respected, credible idea of a collective truth, influenced heavily by artwork figures, critics, and the general public. In conclusion, the exploration of art's value for Ed Ruscha's work has been enlightening. I've looked at what makes art meaningful and how Ruscha challenges traditional ideas. By comparing his piece to Duchamp's fountain, we've seen how art can push boundaries and how that translates to increased value. Through the discussion of interpretation, we've highlighted the personal nature of what art is, its value, and how nuanced and complex the answer is. Assessments of value have to pay attention to the more general collective truth, heavily influenced by art figures in the wider scope of the general public. Value concluded by its objective, individual opinion of a person is also equally as valid. So I'd like to ask you, the viewer, what is art and what is its value? Thank you for watching.